Welcome to What's the Point? A weekly discussion of truth, realities, challenges, theological and philosophical views, national policies, and international concerns. Welcome to What's the Point? Today we're going to be talking about is education really the key to success? So first of all, before we even get to that question, let's start with what is success and how do we measure it?
Okay, now success really depends. It depends who you're asking and the context of the question. Like, if you are talking to people in church, Christians particularly, they will define success as being able to fulfill God's purpose for their lives. Whatever that purpose is, if that is fulfilled, that is the Christian measure for success. But in the general sense, in the generic or secular world, if you like to say that, success is really achieving some form of, say, a dream, an ambition, a goal in life. So if you try to set a goal in life and you hit that, whether that's education, whether that's becoming successful in business, whether that's becoming famous, that's becoming a great athlete or something like that. If you
Yeah.
achieve that, become rich or whatever, then you are considered successful in the general sense of the word. So it depends really from which context you're asking the question.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that, Josh? What do you think success is, and how do you think it's measured?
Well, I think that it's different for everybody. And it's different also in a Christian context versus non-Christian context. If it's a non-Christian context, oftentimes success is measured by the world and
Mhm.
the different things the world sees that is important. So, that could be financial success
Mhm.
for a lot of people. And or okay, it could be success through fame.
Your fame, yeah.
Try your best to really try to make it through fame and make a name for yourself, and I guess leave this um, legacy behind that people will remember. When it comes
Mhm.
to a Christian context, definition of success is a little bit different.
Yeah.
You know, I think because we understand that it's about serving others, and so um, success looks different. And in my opinion, as a Christian, it gives you less pressure in a way because you're able to uh, understand that you're serving others, and you're not so much pressured by like making sure you're remembered, but just trying your best to be a good steward for Christ every day. And I think that's really cool because it allows a person to not feel stressed about trying to get the world's approval or anything, but instead just get God's approval by simply trusting and giving your life and kind of seeing what the day holds. So you live more day to day
Right.
instead of trying to live in this pressure of like being remembered. What's really funny is that you know people try so hard, including myself, to be remembered by the world. But the issue is this: like if you are measuring success, like you won't even see success um, or your legacy until you're dead. So it's too late to appreciate.
Yeah.
Um,
So it
and
sounds
so
like it's a
it's
little bit like easier to feel successful if you're a Christian then kind of.
right, right. In a way, it's like it's easier, but also it's just like there's that like there's less pressure because you're not appeasing a bunch of different people
Mm.
that you're never meant to appease or you're never meant to get your affirmation from, but you're just appeasing God through a different set of standard, through a different set of what success looks like. I think that's really cool because then uh, with when you try to appease the world, you end up gonna not um, be satisfied because somebody's not gonna like what you're doing, or somebody's not gonna.
Right. Mhm.
Not all of them are gonna agree with what you have or what you're doing. That can leave you frustrated because then you're like, oh, um, why isn't this person doing this, or why isn't this person doing that? So it becomes tough, and then you just end up feeling like, you know,
Not enough.
no matter what you do, it's like you're drowning because somebody's not feeling it. So
Right. Basically, it's kind of like if you're measuring it through the world, then it seems like you're never going to measure up because it's a different standard. Okay, so that's basically what we define success. You guys defined it as in the Christian terms, and then in more of like the secular world terms. So, what about education? When we think of education, what comes to mind?
Well, what comes to mind normally, if it's education, at least from the Asian context,
Mm-hmm.
is a college degree.
Okay.
So in the Asian context, maybe not in the American context, in the Asian context, if you're just a high school graduate, you are not yet technically employable.
Got
And
it. Okay.
the reason why you need to finish college, at least in the Asian context, is because most jobs require a college degree.
Of
So
some
when you,
form,
of
or
some
are you
form,
talking a bachelor's degree, a
a
four
bachelor,
year?
yeah, yeah, a 4 year bachelor's degree.
Okay.
And normally, if you would like to be promoted to like a higher position, a master's degree would be helpful.
Mm,
So, in relating education to success, we have to agree, I think, on a framework of what success is. Otherwise, it can be said that education has nothing to do with success. If it is
mm,
purely biblical success we're looking, but
okay.
it can be
Okay.
another form of education
Right.
that we need for that. It can be
Yeah.
an informal education. So, uh, but if we're talking here of the general definition of success, trying to live the world better than when you entered. Success meaning that you are better when you leave the world than when you have come to the world.
Okay.
So meaning your situation when you were born, the situation when you will die, the situation when you will die should be better than when
Then
you
the
were born.
situation when you were born. Okay.
Yeah. So if that is the general definition of success, then education has a very, very big role to play. And I'm talking here about formal education. And if you look at the studies of the United Nations and a lot of international agencies, they will always point to the fact that the number one factor to alleviate a country from poverty, to alleviate a country from uh, economic collapse or from really below economic standards
Hmm.
is really to educate the masses, to educate the people,
Okay.
because education has been proven to be the way to upgrade the economic condition of any country for that matter, as a general sense.
Okay. Basically, college education is pretty important in that sense. That's how we're, to measure the definition of success that you were talking about. Well, what about you, Josh? If when you hear the word education, what really comes to mind for you?
I think that with education and like the idea of it's sometimes I guess like it differs like for different cultures,
Mm,
and so like that is saying in an Asian context, it's like for college and stuff, but I feel like education in a way, or differs from country to country, obviously, but um, it could also just mean like the informal stuff that he's talking about. Like, doesn't have to be a formal education when it comes to um, a certain context. It can be because a lot of times, like some people like don't go to college but make a lot of money because there's more blue collar jobs. So in
mm,
that sense, education can be a little bit different in that sense. And so it's just like literally, in my opinion, education is definition of it is simply learning a set of skills that will allow avenues of success for you in the future, um, whatever that may be. And so that necessarily doesn't have to be college. It could even be just like life like street smarts in life, trying to teach you or life teaching you different lessons. To begin with, and so just those
Yeah.
things are something that you have to think
That
about as far as
one that
education wise.
encompasses the whole
Right,
education aspect. Okay, yeah,
right.
because that was kind of my next question. That you mentioned the importance of college, a 4-year degree, especially in the Asian culture, and how the United Nations have said that that would be the best, as a proven way to elevate a society. But as we, so I guess that's in the Asian standpoint. It seems to be that in the American culture, which not everybody is obviously in the same, feels the same way, but in the American culture, a lot of times having the high school diploma is enough, obviously, for, not, I wouldn't say the professional jobs. You obviously can't be an accountant with just a high school diploma, but there's a lot of jobs that people work all their life and retire on. Say owning a mechanic shop, and or having a small business that they don't have a college degree on. They usually have what they call, I don't know if they have it there, but it's kind of like a trade school. So after high school, then say you wanted to go into construction or carpentry, plumbing, things like that, you can go to a trade school that's maybe a year and a half, and then you'd have the skills that you need. um, and we also have, so what do you think of that, like, when?
Okay. In fact, in the Philippines, that is institutionalized very well. I think
Okay.
it's something that can probably even be modeled by other countries. So you finish high school, and how high school now is up to grade 12. We're now following international standards. Before it
Okay.
was only up to grade 10. Now
Right.
it's up to grade 12. So technically, when you finish high school, you're already educated, basically. So that is covered under what we call the Department of Education here, up to grade 12.
Okay.
So then you have to make a choice. You want to go to university, you're under the Commission on Higher Education. So that's the choice if you wanted to be in the university, 4-year degree course, more white collar jobs, and then proceed masters, doctoral. So that's one path. You call it the Commission on Higher Education. The other side is for those who are skilled. So we call it TESDA, Technical Skills Development Authority. That's where you can choose if you like to be a bartender 6 months, you would like to be a mechanic 1 year and a half, you would like to be a
Mm,
refrigeration like electrician, you would like, so there are different courses there, which is skills.
okay.
So that we are trying to balance the fact that not because you're a 4-year degree uh, graduate, you are better than a chief electrician. So we're
Right.
trying to say that if you're a good skilled worker, you are equally as good as a doctor
Mm.
in
In
so
your field,
that
yeah.
in your field. So that's why TESDA is there, because you can even enroll if you are a good singer. There is, by the way, a course in entertainment, because there are a lot of Filipinos who go abroad for singing. So now there is a course to sing, to dance, to entertain.
Mm.
And that's really
Okay.
crazy, but there's a course for that. So now you can, now it is a requirement before you can sing and go abroad. You have to finish a TESDA course. There is a
Mm.
TESDA course for massaging or
Yes, yeah, massage therapists and
therapy,
stuff like that, yeah.
therapist. Okay, so you see, so if you cannot afford college, because that was the trauma in the Philippines, they look at those who cannot finish college as undesirables.
Mm.
Now, not anymore, because you may not finish the 4-year degree, but you finish a 6 month, 1 year, 2 years, like sister, hotel and restaurant associate, something like that. You are equally an educated person,
Right.
provided you finish the grade 12.
Oh, okay, so
So,
basically you finish, yes, exactly, because it's similar
which
here
is
as well.
equivalent to high school in the US.
Yeah.
So, if that is our context of education, that is what is needed. I mean, I don't think any country in the world will say, okay, it's okay whether you're grade 4, grade 3,
No,
it
no, no,
makes you
yeah.
success. No, that's okay. I mean, we will be a good nation without even having to educate our people. Now,
No,
ignorance will bring the country down.
absolutely. Yeah, I no, that makes sense. So, yeah, Josh, I think you touched up on that. On, I guess, for example, like we had, okay, Bill Gates, right? We all know who he is, Microsoft.
Yeah, yeah,
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was like a college dropout. So I guess he's one of the few that kind of
yeah.
made a name for themselves. Um, so
He
I
should be
guess
in test. He should be in Tesla
he should have been a Tesla, not on the other
at
side where it's
Harvard. No,
all
yeah, he should
not a
have been. He
Harvard
should have been
or
Harvard. Yeah,
a
yeah.
four-year degree. So how come, I guess the big disconnect is some people are thinking that, if they believe that the four-year education, the like how you mentioned before, obviously if they didn't finish, some people think that if they didn't finish like college, like they didn't do a four-year course, that they're not as successful. But it seems to be like in the Philippines, we've kind of, that's not a case anymore. Um, why do you think? So I guess, why do you think people feel that education, like a four-year education, is the only way to go? Because it seems like it's not.
I think this is important. This is important culturally. Like in the Philippines, you see the real rich people did not finish college. I mean, you had that research, Kerry, when you were grade six.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, you studied the owners, the Taipans in the Philippines, the owners, the richest people.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I still have the
the
report.
paper
Yeah, I
on
still
that,
have the
and
paper right
like
now.
Henry C, the owner of SM, did not
Mm-hmm.
finish college. Uh, Lushutan,
Lushitan, yeah.
in fact, in fact, maybe six or seven of the richest Filipinos did not finish college. Now, but that's different because during that time, these people did not have a chance to study. They were migrants from China, and they were businessmen since they were kids. Their parents, they were forced into business. They were forced by crisis to become really great. So when we talk about education here, we talk about the general context in the sense that you need to send your kids to school to make them more competitive when they will look for a job.
Okay.
Because really, well, a person who is like a grade six graduate compete with one who is a college graduate.
Absolutely.
Definitely,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you look for a job, that is a big advantage. And for me, as a father example, between giving, say, $5 million, which I don't have, by the way, as of now.
As
But
of
maybe
now.
maybe next year. Uh, uh, Instead of giving $5 million to you or to Josh, I would rather that, and you are, in the case of Kerry now, you have a college degree, you are a CPA, you have a master's degree, an MBA. Josh has an entrepreneurship degree, finishing his master's. I would rather that you have a master's degree than a $5 million, because $5 million can disappear just like that when you lose the business. But no
Mm.
matter if you lose the business, your education will never be lost unless you go crazy.
Unless you go crazy, then it'd be lost.
Yeah, unless you go crazy, then your education is lost. But that's very remote. So so long as your mind is intact, uh, you have the best chance to succeed. You might fail many times, but because you're educated, you
Mm.
can stand again and start again. An educated person has the best chances of being successful. As a general rule, when you talk about, because the problem here is that when people use an argument against education, they use the few successful, but that's not the majority of it.
Right,
Majority of the
right.
people who are employed, majority who are educated, majority of the requirements when you go to look for a job, when you're promoted to
Right.
management
Is
positions,
you have to be
is
educated.
education. So
Hmm.
that, in that sense, education is very important to be successful in the general sense of the word.
Right, right. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Josh? When people say, is education key to success? Um, what really, what do you think about just that in general?
I think that education, like, as far as intangibles, like, people don't understand that a part of education obviously is learning about different things, but also the employers want to see if you are faithful and if you are committed to hard working. Because a lot of times education will frustrate you and will be different. It'll be stressful, and so I feel like from my experience at least, the employers want to see if you can handle stress the right
Mm.
way and still push through. So I feel like a lot of it, education is setting you up not necessarily to know a lot about a certain industry, because you can just learn that when you get hired.
Right,
Um,
absolutely.
but I think that it's more so seeing if you're faithful, and seeing if you can push through and handle stress the right way, when you're given it, and how to juggle different classes in like life, and and that in general. So
No,
I
I
think
think
Yeah,
that's
yeah. In short, education gives you the framework.
right.
Yeah, the framework. Well, there are a lot of educated people who failed, but
Right.
there are a lot more who succeeded,
right. No,
because you have the framework with for life.
because I think, like, for example, like Josh brought up a really good point where employers really look at, because like you said, when you get the job, you get training. So obviously you need, like I said, okay, let's, for example, accounting, you have to know basic accounting to be able to like learn the job. But when you are in the job, they teach you like the software or how to handle stuff in the office. But they look at your grades also to see, okay, at this semester they were taking say 5 classes, and were they able to juggle the 5 classes? Because in the US, I don't know if it is there that in the Philippines, but here you can't just get hired with just education.
Yes, of course.
You have to
No
have experience too,
experience,
which means
and then
a lot of college
correct.
students here work while they're in college, because even if they had a 4-year course, like 4-year degree, but they didn't have a job for some reason, I mean, they're still they're another person with the exact same qualifications but have a job, um have a higher chance of getting hired, because the employer sees it as, okay, that's great that you did school, but were you able to apply it, or were you able to juggle it at the same time? I guess they also want to see if you wanted to pursue more education, can you do that without quitting your work?
Well, strangely, even here in the Philippines, if you are a summa cum laude, but you are not an athlete, and you don't have extracurricular activities,
Mm.
most likely someone who's barely, not even a cum laude, but with extracurricular activities, with athletic skills, would most likely get the job than a summa cum laude with no other qualifications.
Right.
Because they will look at one who is, extremely educated, sorry to use the word, extremely educated, as something who is so idealistic that may not be able to handle the realities of the real world.
Yeah, and I think that's what we were trying to get at, is that um it's education is important, but it seems to be that the still having extracurricular activities, sports, volunteer activities, those still look good on a resume. um Things like that basically shows that you can handle multiple tasks of different avenues of life and still be able to be successful.
In
um
fact, before I forget, I need to
yeah,
point
go
this
ahead.
out because many parents are grade conscious.
Yeah.
Not very far from you. You have a grandmother who is very grade conscious, and fortunately or unfortunately, a mom who is grade conscious too. And you probably have the benefit of being pressured to be grade conscious. But I am not grade conscious. I am learning conscious. So I always ask you, if you remember when you were little, I will not ask you, what's your grade? Your mom will say, did you get an A? Did you get 95, 99? What's your grade? I don't say, what's your grade? I say, what have you learned in that subject? So
Yeah.
but important to me is not your grade. Important to me is, have you learned something from that particular subject that you got? Because you can have an A grade but learn nothing.
Which is
Uh,
that is
yeah,
very
from
true,
something.
because remember
Yeah,
when after we graduated, after I graduated my master's and Josh graduated bachelor's, and then you asked us what the normal balance of goodwill was, and Josh and I didn't know, but Ethan knew. And so then you're like, what are we paying these American schools for if you do not know that?
Yeah,
We're like, but we passed and we graduated, but there are certain things that I think that's, you mentioned that, and I think honestly I've mentioned this to other people here also, but I think that the Philippines is more, I know a lot of people think, oh, Asian countries are more grade conscious, and you have to have an A, or else, but really, well, from my, for our experience, because we actually grew up there, uh, is that it's not just about the grades too, because there I feel like a lot of the teachers actually, and it's nothing against teachers here obviously, but a lot of the teachers there really ingrained just, um, did you really understand the what I just taught you? If not,
yeah.
actually try to, the tests are really tailored to what you learned, what we learned in class and things like that. But here in the US, in college, particularly, and this is my personal experience, so it doesn't go again, across the board. When I went to college, I felt like, the professors only had a, um, they just wanted you to basically all the grades to be in what they call a bell curve. So, a little bit of A's and lots of B's and C's, and then some people fail. But it wasn't that did they really learn. It was more like, okay, well, here's the information, and then you guys, I'm going to teach for 50 minutes to an hour, and then you guys read it on your own. You're going to get tested in 3 weeks, things like that. But it was very impersonal, and it didn't really, there's times when you didn't understand, and yes, you can, obviously ask, but it wasn't tailored more to, did you really learn? I had some professors that were very, very good, to where they really made sure that the students learned, and he would slow down. Others are just following the syllabus as created by the department that they belong in. And so I think that's a really big distinction, because when I was in the Philippines, I felt like, yeah, we were in school for a lot longer, but I felt like I learned a lot of the things that, um, just the standards are a little bit different there. I feel like it's higher than it is here. Like, for example, when I came to the US at, well, how old was I? 16, 14,
13, 13, 14.
14, yeah. Um, 14, I already knew, say, like proper grammar and spelling and other things, but I have seen peers here where the spelling and the grammar are a little bit, you know, lacking. And I don't, that's not disrespect to them, but I think, I don't know if the education during that time was very ingrained at, they're not as strict about it.
Remember this funny thing. I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if Josh would remember this as well. I think you were 12 years old, Kerry. It was a Christmas time in LA.
Mm.
And we normally ask questions, trivia during Christmas, and give $5 when you answer correctly. The kids remember that. So we normally do that, and so with all your cousins there, and so the question was, okay, for $5, who is Abraham Lincoln?
Oh, I remember. Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
and one of your cousins said, hey, he's not my neighbor. I don't know him. I said, what answer is that? And then you answered, you just arrived from the Philippines. And yeah, he was your whatever 16th president or something like that.
Yeah.
And so you knew better that he was the president of the United States of America than one who literally
Who
was
lived
or
here,
grew
born
up
here,
in the
yeah.
U.S. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No,
Oh
so
no,
no, I
Tita.
think
He's not my cousin. He's not my
he's not my
neighbor. I don't know
neighbor.
him.
But I think it's also because, like I said, the standard is just different. Here in the US, a lot of it too is like we're trying to make sure, no one feels left behind, on like they don't, in the Philippines, it's like, okay, you're either first, second, third, top 10 in the class, or you're not top 10. You know what I mean? Like you're 11 or 12. But here they don't really do the ranking, because it kind of hurts the kids' feelings and stuff like that.
But
Um,
this is really something. I don't know. I do not mean to be discriminatory. This is an observation. You see, I travel a lot. It's part of my work. before this pandemic, sometimes I do 40 country visits a year.
Yeah.
And this is really strange. When I meet different people from different cultures, Filipinos, Koreans, Americans, Canadians, um, and I ask the question, I normally ask who their president is, who their senators are, what's the form of government they have. Most of the other people don't really know. I mean, they don't know their presidents, they don't know their governors, they don't know what kind of government system they have. But you ask a Filipino, they would know who their president is, they would know what form of democratic government they have. So I don't know whether government even is really taught, but I think governance, being a national concern, should be every citizen's concern. But unfortunately, not all. Well, I asked, like, I will not mention the country because that would be discriminatory. I said, who's your president now? I said, I really don't know. And he was like 28 years old. He
Yeah,
does,
I
he
mean,
does, yeah,
I think,
yeah.
here in the US, people would know their president, but I don't know if a lot of people don't care or want to take part in anything about government because they think, well, the government is biased, or well, also because our news stations are pretty biased. Like right now, honestly, when I need to check on the news, I will check like BBC, The Guardian, Al Jazeera, because I don't really trust US news because the things that they have, they don't really do proper journalism anymore. They put some slight to it.
Let's test Josh. Does Josh know
Oh
at
yeah,
all who?
Josh,
Does
let's
Josh know
test you.
the governor of Texas?
I do. Greg Abbott.
Yeah, I was saying, oh Lord, please let him know.
Please let him know because I was just bragging about Filipinos and then
Of course. Of course.
basically, what is the point? Why is education a key to success? Um, what are you guys' thoughts on that? Dad, if you want to start.
Okay, I will put two points here for non-Christian and Christians. So for the general, whether Christian or non-Christian for that matter, in general context, education is really needed because it gives you better chances of being employed. It gets you better chances of getting funding for your business, gets you better chances of being trusted by people, gets you getting chances, and generally assures a country of getting out or ameliorated out of poverty.
Mm.
So that is established international fact. But by the way, in the non-formal sense, in the Christian context, if you want to grow in Christianity, you still have to be educated. Maybe not in the Bible school or in theological cemeteries. Sorry, seminaries, Josh. Uh, 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 but you need to study the Bible. You need to have, Bible studies, Bible classes. You need to learn even the informal way. You need to expand your knowledge, and that is education. For you to know more about God and to know more about His teachings, that is education, and that is needed as well if you want to grow and have greater responsibilities in the Christian circle and therefore achieve what God has purposed for you to do. So in both cases, whether in the Christian context or in a general context, I am of the belief that education is really generally essential for success. Although I say that there are a lot of people who have become successful without really being fully or highly educated, but
Educated.
that is more of an exception than a
Mm.
rule.
Than the normal. Yeah. Yeah, what do you think on that, Josh? Is education really key to success? Or I guess do you want to redefine the education to mean other than just college? What do you think?
I think that, in different contexts, education is important because um, it allows the people to just in a way learn how to deal with stress and learn how to, like guys say, in the framework of what that would look like in the future, and handling different seasons of your life and just different avenues and what's going to happen when when you have those pressures. But also education can be something that is informal in that way. And so I think a lot of it has to do with, to be honest, mixing the head knowledge with being present in the moment, because there's some people who are highly educated, and have this paper, right, that is necessary a lot of times, but they're not present in the moment, and they didn't learn through the education. Then it just becomes um,
Like a piece of paper.
right, just the paper. And so, like, it's just a matter of like mixing that up with your heart and your passions. Like, and that's the most important thing, in my opinion, is that if you can match your education with your passion, then you really become effective in your craft, whatever that
Mm.
may be. Because that's something that's why I'm a big believer that you don't necessarily have to find the job that has the most money, but find the job that fulfills you, because then education in turn will be a lot easier and a lot more freeing, and because it's about what you're passionate about, and you're adding value to the entire world in an organic way, and not in a forceful way, because you love what you do. So
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. I think we did a pretty good discussion here today on education, and you guys set up some really really good points and brought it up. So I can go ahead and close this in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this time together that we can just discuss education and success, um, what success means, what kinds of educations are important. Thank you for the time for us to be able to talk about this and learn from each other. I pray that we can continue learning, that we can continue to educate ourselves on just different things in life, different things about current events, different things when it comes to reading our Bibles and just learning about you, Lord. Thank you so much for this time today. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
amen.